Welcome to the Digital Business Evolution Podcast, a place that you can now call home. I know you're creating long-lasting impact in this world, and you absolutely deserve the time, location, career, and financial freedom that you desire. I'm here to guide you with proven strategies, tools, and mindset hacks that I've taught to thousands of business owners. You'll also be hearing from exceptional guests sharing stories of their own personal and business evolution. My name is Jessica DeRose, and I'm here to teach you what I'm learning. We are all inherently worthy, regardless of the number of degrees, awards, and accolades that we've collected along the way. Grab a notebook, a coffee, and enjoy the show. Hey, I'm jumping on real quick to let you know about a really cool opportunity to work with me completely for free. So every Tuesday, I'm offering coaching over texting. And that means the first 10 people to text me on my number and ask me a question, I'm going to coach them back completely for free. Voice memos, long form text, it 100% is me. This is the stuff that lights me up most in my business. So your questions can be anything from business to strategy, working with your spouse, RV life. Really, there are no questions off the table. You just need to make sure that you get it in quickly on Tuesdays because I am only coaching the first 10 people. So my number is 973-358-7836. This is for US numbers only. Make sure on Tuesdays you text me your questions. I'll get you your answers, and you'll be added to my text community where you're going to be getting different texts from me throughout the week. Strategies, motivation, all the things. So 973-358-7836. Can't wait to hear from you. Hello, Digital Business Evolution. I am so excited. We have a very special guest with us today. I know I say that every time, but that is because I only bring you special guests. I bring you people that I know, like, and trust, and that I love, and whom I've worked with, and who I just can totally get behind. So this guy, well, I'm going to give you the full story, but I want to just do a formal introduction. This guy is none other than Jim Carter. So for the last 2 decades, Jim's passion for technology has shined through projects of all sizes and industries. After seeing firsthand the power that tech has to make a greater impact, Jim dedicated his life to giving change makers the tools that they need to succeed and thrive. As a passionate technology coach, Jim uses his 20 plus years of knowledge, expertise, and experience to advise social impact organizations, brands, and experts. Jim is the founder or co-founder of Carter Custer, an agency providing growth and content services for purpose-driven brands and organizations of all sizes. He's an Eagle Scout, entrepreneur, husband, father of 2 adorable girls. I added that. Public speaker and trainer in the industry. Jim resides in the LA area, enjoys a fine cup of coffee, and let's face it, an occasional glass of whiskey. He also rocks a mustache with pride. So that is his official bio. But Jim, we're going to go so much deeper. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Jess. Thanks.
This is a special one. It really is, because we're going to talk about all of where you came from, but you and I have both worked together. I've hired you, you've hired me. And I think the most beautiful thing is that it all started with a friendship. Yeah. And so.
Yeah, just over dinner one night.
Over dinner.
Oh, it all works.
Yeah. So for the listeners right now, I just want to connect the dots. So if you listen to the show, if you follow along with anything that I do, you most likely know that I have an involvement with Pencils of Promise, which is the nonprofit organization Mike and I donate to. We have built our school over in Ghana, Africa, and we're pretty passionate and pretty loud about our desire to be involved with Pencils of Promise. And Jim Carter, who I can see right now because we're on Zoom, he is the guy, the single-handed guy who got me connected to, at the time, the CEO of Pencils of Promise. And he's the one who really sort of kicked the door open for me of what felt like a crazy, stupid idea. And so I would love to share the story of that connection later on in the show. But let's just go backwards for 1 second. So you've worked in tech for 20 years, and my older brother, he's been in tech for 20 years or something as well. I cannot imagine him making the leap to kind of Instagram, social media, almost influencer, front of the scenes, because as a tech person, very much, very often you're behind the scenes. So how did you get here where now you're coaching and mentoring and you have this agency? What does that look like?
It looked like a lot of messy action along the way.
Yeah.
And really taking inventory of my life, understanding where I wanted to go, being okay with not knowing how to get there, And actually, let's pause on that for a second. So as an engineer, like when people say, what do you do? I now say whatever it takes. And then they say, okay, haha, but I'm like, well, I'm a recovering software engineer. And I say recovering because it takes everything out of you when you pour your soul into something, right? And I did that for so many years. And what I just found is the more that I kept grinding, the more that I kept kind of following that passion of being behind the scenes or being behind the keyboard or behind the screen and not really showing up in front of it. For a while, it was fine because it was all I knew. And it was what I was quote unquote comfortable with. You know, I'm an only child. I grew up humble roots, you know, religious family, simple life. And I told myself, I got caught in the story of like, I didn't need much. I was happy with whatever I would come up with. I knew I was going to make a difference in the world. I just didn't exactly know how.
Yeah.
But it took so much for me to even have the awareness of where I wanted to go. And almost like permission granted to dream bigger. And then I was like, well, the engineer in me is like, okay, but how are you going to get there? Like, what's the plan? You don't have a plan yet, so you're not going to do it. Why are you going to go down that bridge if you don't know that that bridge is going to stay up? It's not going to shake. You're not going to fall through. And it's really hard when you've got a different kind of brain where, you know, like just you're a visionary. You dream big, you execute, you build a team for it. You're not afraid to get in front of the camera. That was one of the things that I remember right in the beginning that we connected on. I was like, what do you mean you just hold your phone up and talk about it? Like, it didn't make sense to me. But for those that are listening that either can identify with one or the other, you can see with my identity how that was hard because I'm the guy who represents that guy or gal who just shows up and does the work and is proud of what they do, but doesn't really want to make that leap. So thinking about your brother that way, that the thought of what it would be like for me to cross the chasm was terrifying. And I didn't know how to get there. And that was one of the reasons I joined Empower years back, is because I was so tired of calling you and asking you for favors. I was like, can I just join you? Just teach me. And you did. And it was great. But all those stepping stones led to me taking the risks and trying something new and failing where I was meant to fail and shining where I was meant to be authentic, and people saw through it and cheered me on. And I'll never stand here and say I've got it all figured out, but I'm no longer afraid. And now I can dream bigger, and I'm okay kind of taking those leaps and continuing to drive forward what I know. And now I look at it as I've got that unfair advantage where I do have 2 decades worth of experience, and I'm able to apply that, and I'm able to iterate that much faster.
Yeah, I love how you're looking at that. And just the words unfair advantage, it really just like let it sink in. Unfair advantage, it's powerful. So when you were working in more of the formal kind of corporate tech, were you working for someone else? Were you working for a company?
I did both for a while. I've gone back and forth between entrepreneurship and full-time employment. Like you said, I have 2 daughters, happily married, going to be 15 years next year. My daughters are 11 and 9. And there was a point, let's see, so coming out of the recession, the last recession, who knows when we're going to be listening to this again. Jeez, I can't believe I had to say the last, not just the recession. So coming out of that, you know, I was begging people to build WordPress sites for $500, you know, and I had a new baby, I had a mortgage. I was just like, it was rough times when we all went through that, because it affected all of us differently. And for me, I remember what it was like holding Olive, my oldest, you know, as a baby, and just kind of like, okay, well, if I need to go flip burgers, I'll do it. If I need to drive for UPS, I'll do it. If I need to go pack boxes, I'll do it. It doesn't matter. I was just like, I need to provide. So I'm humble enough to know when I need to take a step back from maybe a dream or just pause it for a minute, because I've got commitments to my family. But I've always balanced, if I've always been employed, or when I was employed, I've always had a side hustle. And then when I've been growing my business, I'm never afraid to kind of take that step and look at it from perspective and just make sure that it is the right time. I'm not doing myself a disservice. And that's where the engineer in my brain kind of kicks in, where I'm always thinking about different plans, but I'm really focused on one at a time.
It's so interesting. You say, you know, you've kind of always had a side hustle, or you've had your hands in something else. Where do you think that comes from? Did you grow up with entrepreneurs or?
Very little. And I think why I want something different is because I didn't grow up around seeing entrepreneurship in its broad form. It was really new to me growing up. So I'm Jim Carter III. I'm named after my grandfather, Jimmy Sr. And Jimmy Sr., he was an entrepreneur. He rest in peace. I lost him about 10 years ago. But he owned a gas station when my father and his siblings were kind of in junior high through high school, early college. And he grew up kind of teaching my dad stories about it. And I grew up kind of asking him, what was it like when you owned your own business? And, you know, entrepreneurship, I don't know what it was like, in the 50s, 60s,
Sure.
to run your own business. But the stories that he had about it, there was something just different about that. Like that activated something inside of me as a little kid. I saw how happy he was. He was a master mechanic. He owned his own, it was a Texaco gas station. And now it's gone. But anytime I drive by that corner, which is, about 20 or 25 minutes away from my house, I get this feeling that I can't describe. It's really fascinating. It's that I know the work that he put into that served not only my family, but it served so many other families. And there's just something special about thinking about the work that you're doing 10, 20, 50 years from now that I can't put a label on. It's just this innate feeling of knowing that, yeah, sure, you can show up and you can be W-2 employed and you can do what you need to do and you can help turn your company into something magic. And if that's what you're built for, that's great. Do it, because entrepreneurs need employees.
Yeah.
But employees need entrepreneurs too. And there was something about that got me really early on. And I remember always asking him questions about, my papa's old gas station. And that gave me the drive early on. And when I spoke at his services when he passed, I really spoke to that, because that was the thing that connected me with him. That's what he left me with, was that desire to do something a little bit more. And I think it would be different if I grew up around a lot of entrepreneurs, because I would almost feel jaded, or like I've got to step up, or I've got to almost beat them. But because it was almost like an open playing field, I got to create what I wanted, but I never lost that feeling. I never lost that drive, because I got that from my grandpa.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I just have to give him credit, because I see the man that you are today and the way that you run your many different businesses. I've watched you kind of iterate over the years, and, so many people, and I pride ourselves at DBE for this, but so many people say impact driven, right? We have impact in our company. I'm making an impact. I want to make an impact in income. And to be quite frank, I don't necessarily see the follow through on the impact. Now, that's not to say that they're not making an impact. We all are. We're all influencers for one another. You don't have to have a large following to make influence, right? The way that we show up in the world, the way that we speak, the way that we act, you're already making an impact. And there's the ripple effect that we always talk about. But when I think of the word impact, especially when it comes to business, I mean, first of all, I think of you. So if there was a picture next to the word impact in the dictionary, it would be a picture of you with a very fine mustache. No, but really, everything that you do is never done with, at least it doesn't appear this way, an expectation on the end. There's never I'm doing this so that XYZ. I'm doing this because yada, yada, yada. You just do. You just give. You are hands down one of the most giving people that I've ever met. And everything that you do is really driven by the impact that not just you're going to make, but like you said from Papa, what is the impact that it's going to have for the future generations, for the other people, for the neighborhood, next door, and on and on and on. And so it sounds like that's kind of where some of this drive for impact came from. Was there anything else or anyone else in your life that really, gave you this idea or bred it into you or paved the way for being so driven by impact?
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate you saying that. And that's the future desire of what is possible is proven by statements like that. I just want to take a minute and thank you for that, because I don't have it all figured out. I already said that, and I'll say it again. But having fun doing it along the way and seeing the results of giving without expectation is just the most fun ever. I saw Gary Vee tweet that years back. I remember I was kind of cruising through Twitter, and I just remember a tweet from Gary Vee that just said, "What would it feel like to give without expectation?" And I was just like, how simple and how profound. right? Because you always get more in the end when you give without expectation, and it's so hard. We're in such this world of immediate gratification, and scratch your back, I scratch mine, all this stuff, but none of that matters if you're just going to be let down by an expectation that may not come yet. Well, if we disconnect from that and we say, well, what if we just show up the way we want to show up? We take care of our baseline, food on the table, roof over our head, and we have a blast while doing it. I mean, we're on video. You can see behind me, I've got pictures of my school in Ghana.
Yeah.
It's right next to the neighborhood in yours.
I know.
And that was a gift to me from the organization, because I simply gave and I stopped keeping track. I'm the second largest fundraiser with my wife.
That's incredible.
Which I'm so proud of. But I didn't fundraise to build a school. I fundraised because I believed in the impact that was possible. So when I try to zoom out and go back and think about, okay, what was that driving force? I really think it's two things. I think I kind of grew up with it just enough with my family, with my grandfather. And then you mentioned I'm an Eagle Scout. So in scouting, one of my scoutmasters, he's what got me into computers at a very early age. He was a computer repair technician, and probably right about when I was like junior high, so about seventh or eighth grade. He sort of just saw this innate like ability for me to build. And he would just come over to the house and drop off spare parts. And he'd tell my dad, he's like, see if Jimmy can figure something out. Like, I just don't need any of this stuff. And I don't want to throw it away, but like, I can tell he likes to tinker and, to like work with his hands and stuff. And I did. I ended up building Frankenstein computers, and I had a blast, like just creating and just doing more. But that was like that entrepreneurial spark that I needed. And without him, I never would have gotten into technology the same way. And I see what it's like when you give without expectation. He had this ability. I didn't have a lot of money growing up. My parents would pay off credit cards with credit cards. Our family trips were road trips. My parents worked for the auto club, so they just figured out the road, and we went and we got the auto club discount. It was simple. But we didn't need much more. But when he was able to give me, again, that unfair advantage by just dropping stuff off and being like, hey, friend of mine, your son looks like he's got something that could be magical. I've got this extra stuff I don't need. Here, like have him play, have fun with it. And
that's so
now
cool.
that my daughter is almost that age where I was, I can see what that kind of a thing can do for somebody.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of it's a fun feeling to now be so close with my own daughter to the age where I was when I finally started to unlock. And I believe it's a combination of those two things.
Yeah.
It's growing up seeing a man that I respected and loved, that was my grandfather, who was happy and loved what he did and everything. And then also seeing it in somebody that I admired through the Boy Scouts of America, and how that kind of made it very real for me. And again, that gave me the competitive advantage. I ended up building the best computer that I could out of all these parts. And now I had a better system than anybody else. And I already had a jump start because I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it's one of those like start before you're ready type of things. Well, sometimes you need somebody to give you a little push. And I feel like that's what got me going. And that's why now I'm fearless. I don't turn back. I don't turn away. I just lean in.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about it because I've got all those years behind me, and those are backing me up.
It's making so much sense now why I love you so much, because you're exactly like my brother. It was literally, I would come home from school and he'd have computer parts, like circuit boards all over his carpet. And my mom would come in all upset and frantic. We just bought this Apple IIgs and you took the whole thing apart. He's like, don't worry, I'm going to put it back together, So, oh man, it just makes sense. So there's a lot of things that you just said that I want to dive a little deeper into. So if you are watching the video, Jim has the pictures behind him of his school, like he said, in Ghana, that he and Val were able to also build. And I have to share this story right now. So I had first been introduced to Pencils of Promise. I think it was like 2018, maybe the summer of 2018 or so, and a couple different mentors that I just followed. I didn't actually work with any of them at the time. They had all done a mission trip to Guatemala, and they all went together on Instagram, and they were doing a school build. And that was sort of my first introduction to pop, as we call it. And so I thought, wow, this is really cool. I had just left my teaching job the year before. I wanted to be involved in education, and I was running fit trips, which were these little monthly women's-based field trips, fitness-based field trips. And every month we would donate to a different charity. And I'd let the girls pick. We'd pick a charity. We'd donate a couple $100 here and there. And right around the same time, one of my clients, my personal training clients, came in with a book, Promise of a Pencil, which was Adam Braun's book. And he was the founder of Pencils of Promise. He said, I thought you would like this book. You were a teacher. I just thought you might be interested. And so immediately the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, because I'm like, what? I just started researching this pop organization because these mentors of mine were all going. And then about a week later, I'm at an event, shout out to Lewis, Summit of Greatness. And I go to a dinner where we got invited through like friends of friends to go to this dinner. And so Jim and you and I got to sit next to each other. We didn't know each other. And we started just small talking. And I was telling you about fit trips and how I gave to different charities, and how at the time, one of my mentors was challenging me. What if you just gave to one charity? Could you make a bigger impact as opposed to spreading it thin? And so you kindly asked, and you were just doing a lot of listening. You said, oh, have you thought about what charity? And I said, I think I want to give to Pencils of Promise. And before I could even say, have you heard of it? You just broke out into like the biggest grin ear to ear. And you said, yeah, I've heard of it. I work with them. I'm on the board. I was like, what? So immediately you pulled out your phone, you sent an email, introduced me to the CEO, and we started talking about it. And I watched you and Val continue to donate over the next year and continue to fly to New York City and go to their office and work with them and help them with their technology. And I watched you get awarded your school build. And at that point, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if one day maybe we could build a school? And I thought, 5-10 years down the road, maybe it would be something we could do. And it was only about, I think, 6 months later that we were able to build our school. And like you said, they're in neighboring towns. So hopefully one of these days we'll get to go over and visit both of our schools together, because that'll be the most incredible trip to get to go. But it was that type of impact that I'm talking about when you just so willingly and giving just at the dinner table said, oh, I'll connect you to whoever you'd like. Would that mean anything to you? Would you be interested in that? And so I just, again, shout you out and give you a huge acknowledgement and a huge just moment of credit, because I don't know that we would be where we are today with POP and with our school. And what the listeners need to understand is the impact that it's having over in Africa, and hundreds of students going to school, but also dozens and dozens of people from the community that now have jobs and clean water and bathrooms and sanitation programs. And so just really incredible. How did you initially get involved with POP?
It was through the book as well. So a good friend of mine, I helped him build his startup, which later got acquired by Yahoo. So he had really good connections. And one of his connections was Adam Braun, the founder. And at the time, I was living up in the Bay Area with Val and the kids, and I was building my startups. And I was a tech guy living in the Bay Area, just Mecca, right? Just loving life. But I still felt like that empty inside. It was fascinating, because I was like, I am in Mecca. I am doing exactly what I said I wanted to do all these years. I'm fundraising. I'm building startups. But at the time, I was following that growth hacker mentality, like doing the unscalable things until it couldn't scale anymore. You were really chasing the money. You were trying to do things to help businesses grow. And it was my own startup at the time. And I just found that like something was missing. I wasn't sure what it was. I had really fallen away from that impact thing. We talked about where I'm at now, but again, for everybody listening, I went a good majority of the last 2 decades just not showing up like that. Like as soon as I got out of high school, I was off to the races to be an entrepreneur, and then got married, shortly after. I DJ'd for a while. We had kids, from buying a house to doing this and all this stuff. And you fall away from that. And I found that I was missing that simply because at the time I wasn't really reading. So this was probably like 2014 or so. I just gave myself the excuse like I didn't have time. And my friend, who was friends with the founder, I think it was Instagram. He posted on Instagram, like, this was like there was no reels, and we weren't using it for ads like everything is now. It was actually like, oh, I took this photo and I want to share this photo, right?
But let me put a filter on it first.
Yeah, well,
that's what it was.
X Pro 2 on it.
X Pro 2.
So it was X Pro 2 with the book, and he tagged the guy, and he was like, my friend just wrote this incredible book about this organization he built. It's a must read, pick it up. And something about that photo, like I still remember everything about it. Something about that photo stood out to me. I think right like you, hairs on the back of my neck. I was like, something's interesting, like Spidey senses on. And the message resonated with me, which is like, all it took was $25 to like, to build this global nonprofit, like the way that it started. So I picked it up. I started reading it. I couldn't put it down. At the time I'm like reading it on BART, the train, going under the bay, to the work and back and everything. And I remember the night that I finished, I was just laying in bed, like wide awake, and my wheels were spinning. And I was like, man, what would it be like not to be that guy, but to have that desire to be so resolved in the fact that you just know that more is on the other side for you when you just fully commit to it. That family is not like mine, grew up totally different, perfectly fine. But it wasn't like he took a trust fund and then rolled it into like a mega fund, and then he fundraised for it, and he had all of this unfair advantage. Like his only unfair advantage is he had a few more contacts than I did.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, damn it, I could probably figure something out if I really tried hard enough. So I had that conversation with Val, and I was like, I really think I need just a personal pivot. Like I've got to get refocused on my own why, not even business, but just like mine, like what I really, really want for myself. And the next morning I went to the website for Pencils Promise to go check it out, and it was slow, and security was all broken, and there were errors everywhere, and WordPress was all janky and all over the place. And we laugh about this now, and they all know. This is all fair disclosure.
And what year is this, give or take?
This was when the book came out, so 2014, 2015. I would have to look, but somewhere around that. So we're going on 8 years.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking to myself, I'm like, what a horrible situation for this founder. Like, this poor man gets to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. Like, everybody is like praising this book. It's flying off the shelves. He's everywhere, and everybody's going to the website and the site's crashing. Like, oh my God. Like, like the tech guy inside me is just crushed.
Yeah.
Crying. And I just text my buddy, and I'm like, dude, thank you for the book recommendation. It was awesome. I loved it. I honestly think it changed me. But you got to talk to your boy. Like, does he have nobody who can keep his website up right now? I was like, do you want to connect him with me or somebody on the team, and I'll just help him fix it? Because, like, one, I want to learn more about the website, and there's some stuff I can't see. But two, like, I want him to get the donations that he's probably going to get from him. I want him to be able to attract the people who care. So he said, yes. So he texted his boy, and Adam texted back, yes, and they connected me and everything. And they just welcomed me with open arms, and the rest is history, because I ended up, the moral of that long story, thank you for joining my TED Talk, by the way. The moral of that story is we connected to the organization the same way, but just in our own special way. You know what I mean? Like, the book was the catalyst, but we found our passion through our own ways of doing it.
Yeah.
For you, it was how you integrated it into your programs and the way you showed up with Mike. For me, it was just, I fully believed that if I could just give without expectation, I wasn't trying to invoice him. I was just like, can I fix it? That's it. And in a week's time, got the site loading rocket fast. It was fully secure. WordPress errors were gone. Their donations started coming in more. They had better analytics. They could track everything, and they were blown away. And I was just like, this is just a Tuesday for me. I'm not trying to sound, I'm not trying to sound,
it's your zone of genius.
Like, this is what I do. And
sure.
I'm happy to help. So, like, what else do you need? And that just turned into this beautiful story. And then it turned into, well, I'm good with money right now, and this is a fun new side hustle. So I don't have to invoice you. I'm not asking for anything. And I'm like, I also don't have, 12 hours a day, but how can I help? Yeah. I just started asking more, like, I wanted to be more of an active listener and say, like, I can see the impact that this is going to make for you. And I opened that up and I offered, and that turned into them inviting us to a gala. And then that turned into me being fully committed to it. And then that turned into me wanting to help more. And then me helping more ended up raising a lot more money. And then that turned into them inviting me to go to the field, to go to Guatemala for the first time, which if anybody has ever done a charity trip, you understand how you get back from that and it just changes your body chemistry. Like you are just a fundamental different human being when you get back from something like that. You can't unsee that. You can't unfeel what that does. And it just, the ping pong effect of, okay, I got a little bit more fired up. I have a little bit more time. I can give a little bit more. And that turned into a school, that turned into being committed to it and just being an advisor. And it's turned into more contacts, and those more contacts, one of them ended up being Lewis Howes, who was on one of those trips with me. And then he invited me to go to his event. And then we ended up sitting next to each other at dinner.
Yeah.
So you just never know what giving can turn into.
Hey, I'm jumping in to tell you about our newest free tool, a tool that will change the way you approach your business. After working in digital marketing and the coaching space for nearly 10 years, working with thousands, scaling to multiple seven figures, and helping our clients generate over $11 million in revenue, I've recognized a pattern from all of the most successful coaches and entrepreneurs. They all have an awareness that struggling business owners don't have. You see, they know their unique coaching superpower. After taking this quiz, you'll uncover which of the 4 superpowers runs through your DNA. This awareness will help you discover your personal strengths and blind spots so that you can succeed faster, make a bigger impact, and exponentially grow your income. To take this free quiz, just head on over to jessglazer.com/quiz, and you'll be on your way to harnessing your superpower in minutes. Don't forget to share it and let me know which superpower you have. Tag me at I am Jessica DeRose. It's so incredible. Thank you for
Incredible how it all works out.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing kind of the whole journey of it and the timeline. And I think this is the important thing, when so many of our audience members that listen are entrepreneurs, are business owners, whether it's startup or small or big or new or coaching or whatever it might be. And we get so in our heads, myself included, where we post and we don't see the engagement, right? We launch something and not as many people join. We put our effort and our time and our energy into something, and then we don't yield the result that we necessarily want, or it doesn't go the way that we want it to. And so that's honestly where most coaches or most entrepreneurs at that point will quit. But it's also where we get frustrated and we're like, what's the point? No one's seeing my stuff. I hate the algorithm, right? But it just shows you that every single little time you show up, every conversation that you have, every time that you give without expectation, you just have no idea what it could turn into. And I share the quote a million times over, from Steve Jobs, but we can't connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect them looking backwards. And so when you share your story now and we're looking back at Jim and all the things that he's done, it makes sense. But when you're in it and you're just giving, you gave without expectation in 2014, 2015, hey, let me fix your WordPress site. I'm not going to invoice you. You had no idea, I'm sure, what it could potentially turn into in the relationships. So let's shift gears here, because now here today, it's July of 2022. You are really running 2 different businesses, a $1 million agency, which I watched you just grow and scale. And that was so cool. I mean, from literally nothing, getting the text message from you,
zero.
You said, hey, how many millionaires has Empower produced? And at the time, I think it was like 8 or something. And you said, well, it's officially 9. And it was just like the coolest message to ever receive. So now you have this agency. You're, with all due respect, hiring people, firing people, learning how to navigate leadership, team, scaling, building, which you've been doing for many years. So let's shift over to that for a second. What are 2 or 3 things that you would tell someone listening right now who wants to build out an agency? Because I don't have an agency. It's a totally different model than coaching. So what are like some of the differences? What would you tell someone looking to build an agency?
Well, first of all, you got to be ready for a world of challenges, because building a service-based agency is unlike anything else I've ever done in all of the years of my business. And that is not a deterrent. That should fire you up. And the reason is because it did for me, right? We talked a little bit about my story. I got into tech when I was 15, 16. I mean, before that, I was, the Apple IIe. I was coding in DOS and, GW Basic and stuff to help, build flyers for my Cub Scout pack. But little bit different than I've been coding all that time, and I've tried stuff. I've done startups. I built iOS apps, you name it. But I needed to do something that I could still give my technical inspiration to, but I just didn't want to build a SaaS-based company anymore. I didn't want to build a tech startup. I needed.
Can you just describe SaaS for our audience?
SaaS being software as a service.
Sure.
So, for example, if you load up any app on your phone that has a membership, that you have a user account, it does some kind of a utility. That's typically it's software that provides a service, if you will.
Yes.
So you're welcome. So most of the startups I've done, they were apps, they were product-based things. They were things that were kind of tangible or intangible by way of utility, but very little had this service component where you show up in the service of clients. And I wanted to build a different way to use my talents, where it wasn't just me, where I wasn't, I didn't grow up as a coach. I only got into coaching, I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But for me, I wanted to take what I knew and inspire others and attract others who wanted to inspire the same. And I thought, here's a wild idea. What if I build a growth agency that helps people get their message out, that can help do the things that they do in a bigger way? And I thought, man, I have no idea what I'm getting into. I think it's going to be so much fun. And it was. I survived a pandemic with the business. I was able to get through that. I was able to get the clarity that I needed, find the team that I needed, the ride or dies to stick with me, that believed in me, that believed in what we were building together. And we've grown that to be something really substantial and really fun. And the fascinating thing about it, Jess, is yes, it's $1 million agency. I'm really proud of the clients that we've served, the kind of work we've put out there, the impact that it's made. But the most fascinating thing about it is I have grown as a human, the way that I show up and the type of leader that I choose to be in the last maybe 3 months, more in the last 3 months than probably in the last 5 years.
Wow.
And it's because I decided to do something so different, yet so inspired by what I love, that it's just a different energy that I get to show up in. I specifically didn't want to be a coder when I decided to go all in on this agency model. Even though I did what it took to get to that point, I was still coding in the beginning because I had to make some money. I had to figure out how to do it. But now I'm no longer in code. When I say I'm a retired recovering programmer, I mean it. Like, the only time I open code is when I help Pencils of Promise. And I still technically resource my team, but I kind of get in there and I still have some fun. It's a little bit more nostalgic than anything. But growing an agency model and doing it to scale and learning how to trust your team and really delegate at the highest level and make sure that it's clear that this person can own that thing and I expect that of that person. And when they agree to it, I get out of that way.
Yeah.
I'll never be perfect. God knows I've had issues where I've didn't mean to micromanage, but kept asking more questions than needed to. And it always comes back with, I got it. And it's fascinating to see the difference between being a coder in a pit, building a thing, launching the thing, letting it help people. That's great. But just being one small cog in the machine versus thinking about it as a whole watch or like a whole organized mechanical Turk. And now putting the right people in place, managing a larger budget than I've ever managed before, 6-figure payroll, thinking about, massive perks and all these things. And our company offers an unlimited PTO. And what happens when somebody takes, 2.5 weeks off? Oh, shit. Well, we have to have coverage for that. But it's serving people who serve people. And it's giving me this opportunity to take the impact I want and zoom out and really think about things at a higher level. And it's just the next great challenge for me.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to do it. And I fail along the way too, but I've got a great team that backs me up. And I couldn't be more proud to lead the company and to be the CEO of the company, because it gives me that energy to be the leader that my team wants to follow.
Oh, it's so good. And, leadership is not easy. And I think so many people think that when they get into coaching or when they build a personal brand, then they're immediately a leader, which you are, but leadership takes work. And being a really good leader and a strong leader takes work. And it's, removing your ego and letting go of control and being okay with delegating and hiring and firing. And there's just so many things that I've certainly learned over the years. So when you're talking about this agency model, it's basically, like you said, you're putting people in the right seat, you're delegating out different tasks so that if an entrepreneur like myself were to come to you and say, hey, I'm looking to go from A to Z, you're then giving different things to the team, to the agency, for them all to do their pieces and their parts and work their magic so that it comes back up to the top and I receive the transformation from, A to Z, or the deliverable that you're promising me. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
okay.
And to really think about it in an advanced state, there's also like the concept of succession planning, right? What happens, we have a family vacation next week and I can't be the only person to do key things. So you're really thinking about, okay, well, I have certain ownerships and expectations in my role. There's one thing when you're away for a period of time and somebody can back you up, but it's another thing when that role may want to evolve. We're not afraid to move seats around and say, you know what, this person, we kind of had them overseeing people, but they're actually so much better at processes.
Yeah.
Well, how do we get all of that? How do we get all of that knowledge out of their head there so somebody else who's great at it can take that over and we don't have any lost opportunity or lost time, if you will. So I'm not relating running a business to playing chess, but the thought of how can the leadership team all collectively decide which chess pieces need to be moved at the right time and what are the ramifications of moving it too quick without thinking through it. It's an interesting way to think about business just at a higher level because it's no longer about me, right? When I was coder and when you were hiring me for me to consult you, it was about me. It was they're hiring me for me because I'm there. Now I can still come in and I can still consult or I still coach on SEO and growth for select clients and things like that. And I love to do that, but they know that they're hiring me. It's so much bigger than that now, though. It's no longer about me. It's about my executive team and about how they run and about how they mature the team and nurture them and take care of them. It's about the work that, we have 12 copywriters on my team now.
Wow.
And we've written well over, I think, 2.5 million words for our clients, published well over 1,000 articles. I didn't write one of those articles, yet all of that has gotten done under the guise of the people that I trust to oversee it.
Yeah.
And they've never given me a reason not to trust them. So I get out of their way and they do what they need to do because they do it so much better than I ever could. And I am humble enough, but also smart enough to know that I'm not going to mess it up.
Yeah.
So I fully trust them to just do what they love to do and they enjoy doing it. And that's awesome. So we talked a little bit about this in the past, that employees need employers and employers need employees. It's fascinating when you move from being solopreneur to entrepreneur.
Yep.
Because yes, it can be amazing to be able to step away and to see your business grow. And I know that's how you run your business as well. But it's also like this heightened level of awareness that, wow, you can build something that's scalable and you can, there may be no limit to how big it can go. It's up to you how much of a leader you want to be able to see that thing grow and mature.
Yeah.
And that's the desire that I have of how big of an impact can we make that would free me up to be able to do more things that fill my cup.
Sure.
And where I can be the leader again that they want to follow, then I get to get creative and say, here's some ideas for some more impact we can make. It's just this beautiful circle. And with all that said, at the end of the day, the business is now paying me to pursue my dreams. And I don't have to be the only person who's doing the work in it. And that's really the magic for me in thinking about that agency model is I can still have my baseline. We don't have super fancy cars. I don't have a massive, I don't have a 10,000 square foot house, on the beach in Malibu. Like we live in the suburbs and we're great, but we like nice things too. And you can still have a successful business and you can still enjoy what you do and you can still make a big impact along the way. And I'm really proud of my team, and I'm excited to just see how far we can go with it.
Yeah. Okay. So right now it sounds like sunshine and rainbows because you've got this team and all these people and you're doing really well and your business is helping you build your dreams. But I also know the truth behind it. There are days and moments that are hard. Being a leader is not always easy. And like I alluded to earlier, there's definitely hiring and firing and putting people in the wrong seats and difficult conversations. So what are 2 or 3 things that you would tell our listeners to maybe look out for or to avoid, or maybe challenges and pitfalls that you've gone through that you can just help them navigate a little bit easier?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about a rainbow is it only comes out after the rainstorm. So for me, a couple things, if somebody could have taken me by the shoulders and shook me before I started this and been like, you need to watch out for this. One of the first things is finances. So if you want to build an agency, whether it's all on site, all remote, whatever it is, if you are going to build a team that oversees your team because you want to grow a hierarchy, you want to build something that can scale without you, it's going to cost you more than it thinks, because you want the best people and they want to be taken care of the same way that you want to take care of them. So knowing your numbers early on is critical. One of the things that I put off for way too long was being really comfortable with my numbers. And I got stuck in my head about the whole, like, I think I'm okay. I've got runway. I'll be all right. But when I started to have multiple salaries come into play, when I started to have multiple streams of overhead and different services that came into play, and then of course Slack renews, and it's like another $1,500 because you're growing your team, and oh my God, I wasn't ready for that, and you start to think about these things, it can get overwhelming. But the sooner that you just can understand your revenue, your gross profit margin, your net profit margin, and your cash on hand, those 4 things, and understand how they work, get really comfortable with them and track them over time, you can be unstoppable. And what it took for me was hiring a contract CFO before I thought I was ready. Just so a fractional CFO, basically. I had somebody come in, look at my books, help me get everything organized. And between a combination of having a bookkeeper and having a fractional CFO, and then for me, I take it one step further, and I have a personal, he's kind of like my personal CFO, but he's a CPA, and he just advises me with everything. That leads me to number 2, is just having your numbers in order and understanding that you don't want to spend that money to look at your money, but it's what I call like the sleep better at night insurance policy.
Yeah.
Because I can pull up my budget and my balance sheet and everything right now and show you, Jess, and you'd be like, oh yeah, you've got that much runway. This is how much cash you have in the bank. Like, I have it all organized. So I can also present that to my team. So if anybody's ever feeling like, hey, how are we doing? I can be like, here you go. We're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. We're not going to run out of money today. Like, the girl's going to run. Everything's great, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that, I mean it. So number 1, know your numbers earlier than you think. I would say number 2 is have somebody who can really advise you on what it's like to be an employer. And that can come in a lot of different ways. But for me, I decided to grow a 100% remote company. I don't have an office, although we do have an office in my partner RT's new building in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Yeah.
So we do have one office space in just outside of Denver, which is exciting. But my team, I think we're now at 27 employees and contractors worldwide, so over 6 time zones. And not everybody's on salary, but those that are, there's different policies for different states in the United States. So for example, you really don't want to hire a contractor, I'm using air quotes if you're listening, in the state of California,
right?
Because the employment laws are so drastically different, and it's probably just not worth it. This is not legal advice, but this is the advice I was given by somebody who I trust. So if I hire you to work 1 hour a week or 40 hours a week, you're going to be an employee, you're going to be on payroll in the state of California. And unless somebody gave me that advice, they're just helping point me in the right direction that much quicker. And I've got people in Massachusetts, I've got Georgia, I've got Arizona, I've got Canada. There's so many different ways that you could get caught up down the road. the visionaries listening, they might be like, that's just too much. I'm fine. I'll send them an email. It says, do you want to get hired? Here's what I'm going to pay you. They're going to say, yes, everything's great. That could be fine. But my question for you is that at what point do you have too much to lose, right? We just talked about, yes, like my company has laid off people in the past. We have decided that we didn't want to move forward with certain departments, and we made those hard decisions. Well, if one of those people who we did have to lay off came back and challenged us,
Right.
and all it was an email, do you think we're going to win? You bet we won't, right? But now, if you just get your stuff together and you really think about what it's going to take to serve people who serve people, I really want that to be the theme of a couple of these really core things. So getting your finances in order earlier than you think is really important. Having a heightened level of awareness of the legalities around truly hiring and growing would be another. And probably the last is just making sure that you feel good about what you're doing and who you're serving, right? Because in the beginning, we get caught up on, we'll do everything. But if you don't keep a pulse on that, you can lose some really good team members, not to mention your clients. And I unfortunately fell in that trap. I'll be really honest with you, Jess. About 2-3 weeks ago, I had back-to-back people give notice that they were leaving the company. And at first, it really hurt. I took it personally. Like, it's my company.
Sure.
I take that very personal. And after having exit interviews and learning, I realized there were things that were missed that just did not have to be missed. Like, had I been in the weeds more, had I been able to focus more on a couple key things and not got so lost in the, here's all the stuff we're doing, it could have turned out differently. Now, I'm not living in hindsight, but I'm not going to ignore it either. So one of the things we've done just in the last couple of weeks is we got crystal clear on the things that we do and the things that we don't do. And we've turned work away in the past, but now we are more set than ever on this is what we do the best in the world at. And if you want this, that's great, but it's probably just not something we take on. And we would much rather refer you to a friend, another agency, another company like yours or anybody else to just make sure that we're taking care of them. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's okay. Like, you're still going to be in business. You're still going to have money. You're making space for the right kind of client to come into your world.
It's easier said than done, though. It's just such a beautiful testament to the growth mindset that you have as a leader and then for your team, because it's so easy to get caught up in the scarcity of, oh my gosh, I don't know when another client's going to come along. And so it happens to our clients all the time. And I definitely lived in this space a couple of years ago where, I would sort of create other programs or other things just because people are asking for it. And could I do it? Yes. But is it what I really truly offer or what I really love doing or what I was focusing on? No. But we stretch ourselves to make it happen. And usually that's from a place of scarcity where I'm not going to get a client like this again, or this one is going to give me so much exposure or whatever that might be. And then we often find ourselves in a place of burnout, resentment, confusion, lack of clarity, confused audience members, confused team members. So I just want to acknowledge you for that growth mindset of being able just in the last few weeks to make that, not pivot, but to make that enhancement in your business to say, this is what we do and this is what we don't do. And that's kind of where we're drawing the line, because that's huge. So I love, love, love the things that you said. One of the things that I love, and I'd love you to share with the audience, is that you are now sending daily tech tips, but that's not the thing that I love most. So you're sending daily tech tips, that's hard to say, through text message, even harder to say. But what I love is that you, as the brand, as the coach, as the mentor, have decided to repurpose these tech tips and turn them into, and I didn't tell you I was going to share this, so I hope it's okay, but you're turning the text tips into reels. As a person who admittedly has a little bit of resistance against filming reels, I just love that you're making it simple for yourself. So one, tell us about the tech tips. And two, tell us about the idea to create reels on the way home from your coffee.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that my company does great is we take content that already exists and we repurpose it. We're just masters at repurposing, right? And one of the things we do is we just start with a source piece of content and we help to grow that out there. So, for example, this recording that we have of this show, my team can take it, turn it into multi-thousand word blog posts or blog posts, and then help you grow with Google. We can also take this and, things that were talked about here, and we can turn it into email sequences and help you grow there. But one of our favorites is we can also take video clips or even audio, and we can turn it into social media content with just finding those really key moments that people want to see. Very quick, short form type things. And I regrettably have not been able to even do that with my own company for so long because I got lost in the weeds. Like I was just mentioning, like we get lost playing business. We're like, great, well, what else do I need to do? But you're not focusing on the simple stuff. If we just take that step back and say, well, why do people even care? Why do they want to be attracted? What is it that I can give that might support them? And we talked about this a little bit earlier about like the give without expectation and what that is. I can't tell you how many times now I've had sales calls, qualifying calls, people who want to join the mastermind, whatever it is, that they jump on. They're like, and by the way, there was that one reel or that one video that you put out where you explained that thing about SEO or that thing about content, and it just totally changed for me. And I was like, but you never left a comment. I didn't know that. Like, why are you just telling me that right now? And I say that with a little bit of humor, but it's also true. We can impact so many people by just showing up and just doing the things that we love that we take for granted. And I decided there was no better way to showcase what my team does and even just what I'm good at than saying, if I can't get this done in 20 minutes a day, I'm not going to do it because that's just the way I am. I'm not, I don't just put time aside and batch create content. I know it's doable. I know I quote unquote should, but I just don't.
Yeah.
And I needed to honor that. So the same way I told you, like years back, I was afraid to even hold the camera up and talk to it. But now it doesn't affect me because I've seen what it does for other people, right? I see what that's possible. So I started asking people, I'm like, if you were to learn anything from me, what would you want? They're like, I just want to know what's going on in the tech world, but not feel overwhelmed because of it. That was like a resonating theme. I was like, what if I just texted you one awesome tech thing a day? Would that help? And you wouldn't believe the overwhelm and like the response that I've got. So I've got a text community, and I simply text one awesome tech thing that I see in the industry every day because I've had that pulse on the industry for 2 decades. And I told myself, I'm like, well, if all I'm ever doing is texting one list, then I'm doing a disservice to other people who don't even know that that exists. So about a week ago, I used the green screen feature on Instagram for Reels, and I like screen recorded me opening my text thing and tapping the link that I sent to everybody and like scrolled around a little bit. I use the green screen feature, and I'm walking with my coffee, and I've got my sunglasses and my hat on. And you can hear the birds in the background and cars going by. And like today when I recorded it, like the Wi-Fi thing popped up in the middle of it. I'm like, I don't care because, this is just me being me. Like people know me for being that kind of a person. And I just talk about the things that I love. And I don't need 1,000 comments. I don't need 1 million views. But what I love is when people DM me and say, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Because it's me being me. And now when I do go to, for example, open our mastermind up, people know that they're going to get that kind of stuff from me because they're falling in love with what I have to offer.
Yeah.
And it, you look at your phone and you want to see 10,000, 100,000 views, all that stuff, but that's just the desire. That's not the innate need of sharing.
Yeah.
So the same reason that we're on here having a one-on-one conversation, and whether it goes to 100 people or 100 million people, if it affects one person and helps them, then mission complete.
That goes right back to your giving without expectation, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's when we expect it to go viral. That's usually where the disappointment comes in. So I just love how you're sort of giving everyone permission to just do it messy, just get it done. Don't worry about perfect transitions and knowing dance moves and trending audio. You're just up there, you're putting it together, and you're doing what works for you. Because like you said, 20 minutes a day or more is all you're going to put into it. And you're not going to batch create content, and there's no shoulds, and it's just perfect however it is. So I love that. I could talk to you literally all day, and I want to make sure that we do. Well, I'm mindful of your time, and we put a bow on everything. So let's, before we close it out, just do a couple rapid fire questions. Okay. You cool?
You got it.
You in?
I'm in.
What are you currently reading or listening to?
I am currently reading a book called Play Bigger.
Ooh.
And hold on, let me see if my thing can get us over here next to me. It's Play Bigger, but it's called How Pirates, Dreamers, and Innovators Can Create and Dominate Markets. Recommended by one of my clients. And what's fascinating about this book, and I didn't know about it until he brought it up, is it actually talks about how companies create channel dominance. So Uber and Lyft are just like, they're brainless. We're like, of course I need a car. I'm just going to call one. Well, we didn't know that we needed that until they trained us to realize that that was even an option, right? They use 5-hour energy as an example too. Like you didn't know you needed to be awake for 5 hours until you saw the damn thing at the checkout line next to the gum. And you're like, I could use.
Yeah, I need that.
So that's the book I'm reading right now. And
cool.
It's fascinating to hear that data-driven aspect about creating channels. It's just
really cool. Yeah. I'll have to grab that one. Favorite type of whiskey?
Right now, Basil Hayden's.
I've never heard of it, but okay, I'll look into it.
I drink whiskey in seasons, and right now I'm loving Basil. I'm looking over there. I got it on my shelf.
Good. Favorite meal?
Oh man, I wasn't ready for that. Right now, favorite meal is tacos. We have been doing Taco Tuesday with the family every week for probably about the last 6 months, and it's just fun changing it up. We always try something different, and it's fun experience with.
Yeah. If your girls were to listen to this episode, what's one thing you would want to say to them?
I would want them to know that everything that I do is for them, because I'm past that point of pride, and I would be fine in a little 1-bedroom apartment, driving a shitty car just to, be day to day. But as long as they know that I'm doing these things to create more wealth, to buy us the freedom to be able to create experiences, that I'm showing up to give them the unfair advantage so they can pay it forward and do more in their future. Oh,
so good. Best piece of advice you've ever been given, or favorite quote, either or.
To narrow it down to one is hard. But I'll tell you the one that is kind of the reigning theme for me right now, is just leaning in. It's not necessarily opting out. It's not necessarily feeling like I have to win, but being open to something and leaning in, wanting to try it.
Love it.
As simple as that sounds, it's giving me what I need to keep showing up and keep trying something different.
It's perfect. All right, last two. This is hypothetical. It's not happening. I'm sorry. But if I were to cut you a check for $50,000 today, what would you do with it for the business? Where would you invest in it? How would you use it?
I would invest it in my team. This is more of going back to a tactical answer from some of the things you asked me before, is to grow and nurture and take care of a high-performing team that loves what they do. I want to give them no reason to ever go on LinkedIn or to update their resume and to think otherwise. So just to know that I've got that money that I can reinvest and to take care of them, to get them the help that they need, to get them the tools that they need. You can never have enough money to take care of your team when you're growing a service-based agency.
So good. I believe that for all of the different types of models for business. All right, last question here before we find out where we can find you. So we both know Digital Business Evolution. Our businesses are a reflection of us, and they can only grow to the extent that we grow, and we're always evolving. So what is your next evolution?
My next evolution is, from the business that I'm creating now, is, for everybody who knows me, I go by the name Cause Hacker on all the socials. And I came up with that name because I was a growth hacker for a good majority of my professional life. And I wanted to do it for cause. I wanted to do it where I gave more of a damn, and I was chasing more than the money. And I've always wanted to create that as a movement. I've always wanted to be the example to other product and engineering men and women, to show them that you can do more with your skills and get from behind the keyboard like your brother, and help them get the courage and what they need. And my business is evolving from being a service-based agency to being more of a conglomerate and starting to nurture other businesses. And one of them is that movement. So through our mastermind, Fast Foundations, we're excited to grow that and serve entrepreneurs in their entrepreneurial journey. But the evolution for me is to attract more engineering type minds like myself, and to lead a group to show them and be the proof that you can do it. So the Cause Hacker movement is in my future, and to let this business and our mastermind actually be a big part of that.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch and support from the sidelines and maybe inside and see what we can do together, because I'm here for the mission. So Jim Carter, it's been nothing but short of amazing having you on. What are you working on? What's exciting and new? How can people find you, work with you, contact you?
Thank you so much, Jess. Yeah, right now, I mentioned some of the things we do at the agency. If you are a content creator and you just want to grow and get your message out there to impact more people, hit me up. I would love to hear about what you're doing, about what your message is, and if there's a way we can help you grow. Cleanest way to get in touch with me is either on socials with a DM, or if you want those daily text tips, I would love to send them right to your phone every day. My text community number is 310-496-3389, and you can text me the word daily and you'll just start getting them every single day. That's the simplest way. And if you're really looking to work with me, either personally or in a group form, we have a mastermind, which Jess, you spoke at just last April, which is so exciting. And we're going to be opening that up again this August. So in August of 2022. We have some really great people in that. We've got some amazing speakers teed up. If you're interested in joining a mastermind for like-minded entrepreneurs that give a damn, that want to help, that want to grow together, that need a tribe, we have 2 in-person events, which is really exciting. You can send a message to that same number. In fact, text me the word FAST, and I'll know that that's what you're thinking about. I'd love to tell you more about it. Those are a couple of the ways to work with me and my team and just be part of the movement that we're creating.
Incredible. I love it. And we'll drop that all in the show notes. So if you missed the number or you want to grab the link to Jim's Instagram, you can find that in our show notes. And as always, Jim, thank you so much for being here. If you love this episode, if you have a takeaway, if there's something that you want to share that you think your audience might love, please, 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 it would mean the world to Jim and I if you took a screenshot, shared it on your socials, and tagged Jim and I both at Cause Hacker and at I am Jessica DeRose. And until next time, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.